Hello and welcome. Get ready for an exciting journey into the mysterious and the supernatural. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to stay updated on more thrilling stories. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the tale. It was a cold and stormy night when the small town of Black Hollow was plunged into darkness. Sarah, a young journalist, arrived in Black Hollow to investigate the strange disappearances that plagued the town. The town square was deserted. The only sound was the howling wind and the creak of a rusted swing in the playground. Sarah's first stop was the old library, rumored to hold secrets about the town's dark past. Inside, the air was heavy, filled with the scent of mildew and decay. Sarah found a book with a faded cover titled The Curse of Black Hollow. As she read, she learned of a witch who was burned at the stake centuries ago, vowing revenge on the town. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the library, but no one was there. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah decided to visit the old church at the edge of town. The church was eerily silent, and Sarah felt as though she was being watched. On the altar, she found an old diary belonging to a priest who had fought against the witch. The diary spoke of rituals performed to keep the witch's spirit at bay. As Sarah read further, the candles in the church suddenly went out. She heard whispers in the darkness, growing louder and more frantic. Panicked, she ran out of the church, only to find the streets of Black Hollow shrouded in an unnatural fog. Sarah's flashlight flickered as she ventured deeper into the fog, hearing faint cries for help. She followed the cries to an old, abandoned house at the edge of the forest. Inside the house, Sarah found walls covered in strange symbols and writings. She realized these were warnings left by the previous victims of the curse. The floorboards creaked, and Sarah turned to see a shadowy figure watching her. She screamed and ran, but the figure followed her, its footsteps echoing in the empty halls. Sarah burst out of the house and ran into the forest, but the fog seemed to grow thicker with every step. She stumbled upon a clearing where an ancient stone circle stood, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The air in the clearing was heavy, and Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of dread as whispers filled the air. One of the stones had a carving of the witch's face, her eyes seeming to follow Sarah. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble, and shadows rose from the stones. Sarah turned to run, but the shadows formed into a grotesque figure blocking her path. The figure spoke in a deep, echoing voice. "You cannot escape the curse of Black Hollow." Summoning her courage, Sarah held up the priest's diary, reciting the protective ritual. The shadows recoiled, screaming in agony as the runes in the diary glowed brighter. Just as the ritual reached its climax, the shadowy figure lunged at Sarah with a deafening roar. The light from the diary exploded, banishing the shadows and leaving the clearing eerily silent. Exhausted but alive, Sarah collapsed to her knees, clutching the diary. As dawn broke, the fog lifted, and Black Hollow seemed almost peaceful again. Sarah returned to her car, knowing the curse was lifted, but forever changed by what she had seen. As she drove away from Black Hollow, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was still watching her. Back at her apartment, Sarah opened the diary again, unable to resist its pull. She noticed a new page had appeared, written in a language she didn't recognize. The words seemed to shift and change as she stared, forming a warning. "It's not over." A sudden knock at her door startled Sarah, and she froze, clutching the diary tightly. As she approached the door, the lights flickered and a cold whisper filled the air. "You can't escape me." Sarah hesitated, her hand hovering over the doorknob as the whispering grew louder. The door creaked open on its own, revealing an empty hallway bathed in an unnatural red light. A figure stepped into view, its face obscured by a hood, and it raised a hand, pointing directly at Sarah. Sarah slammed the door shut and backed away, but the whispers now came from inside the room. The lights flickered violently, and the room seemed to shift and warp around her. She turned to see the hooded figure now standing in the corner of her room, motionless. The figure whispered, "You opened the book. Now you belong to me." Summoning all her courage, Sarah screamed and threw the diary at the figure. The diary exploded in a burst of light, and the figure dissolved into smoke. Sarah collapsed to the floor, the room now eerily silent, as if nothing had happened. She thought it was over, but the diary reappeared on the desk, untouched. Terrified, Sarah grabbed her phone to call for help, but the screen only displayed the words, "It's too late." The lights went out completely, and Sarah was left in total darkness. From the darkness came the sound of heavy breathing, moving closer to Sarah. A pair of glowing red eyes appeared in the shadows, staring directly at her. She screamed as a clawed hand emerged from the darkness, reaching for her. Just before the hand could touch her, the diary glowed brightly, banishing the darkness. The light revealed Sarah sitting alone in her room, as if nothing had happened. But the diary remained on the floor, its cover now bearing a new symbol, a blood-red eye. Outside her window, the fog crept back in, and a shadowy figure watched from the street below.